Hey guys, today's day 6 of our 6-day training series. I'm super excited. Today we have hamstrings, which is one of my weaker body parts. But first, I'm gonna get changed and I'll see you guys soon. Alright, first up, we're gonna start with lying hamstring curls. But before we start, we're gonna warm up. All we're gonna do is pick a nice light weight. We're gonna contract at the top, we're gonna stretch at the bottom, and we're gonna secrete as much blood as we can to our hammies before we go into the working sets. With warming up, I want you guys to do as many reps as you need to do, whether it be 10, 20 or 100. Tight hamstrings lately is a massive issue, so we want to make sure we're nice and warm, our hammies are full of blood before we go into those working sets. For me personally, I feel I need to do 2 or 3 warm-up sets before I go into those working sets. You guys need to judge that for yourself and your body to what you guys think you need. Now with this exercise, we're going to do about 5 working sets. We're going to make sure throughout the movement that when I'm contracting from the bottom of the movement all the way to the top, that my glutes are compressed into the bench. A lot of the time when people do this particular exercise, as they're lifting the hamstrings from the bottom, they're levering their glutes up in the air to help them get the weight to the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to isolate our hamstrings as much as we can, and we're going to mentally really focus and put as much tension as we can on our hamstrings. Throughout the entire movement, when we contract at the top, we're going to make sure from the top of the contraction to the bottom, we're going to make sure we're using our hamstrings to lever the weight all the way down to a full stretch, and there's no release points. We're going to explode up for 1 second, hold the contraction at the top, and from the top on the way down in the eccentric, we're going to go down for about 4 seconds. We're going to aim for about 15 reps. And as we're contracting our hamstrings from the bottom of the movement all the way to the top, when we're making sure our glutes are down, what we're also doing is we're making sure we're bringing our knees up slightly as we compress our glutes into the bench. That just helps us isolate our hamstrings more and prevents you from using lower back or glutes. Also with like any exercise, progressive overload is extremely important. Our goal is to keep the best form we possibly can with progressively increasing the load each set. With any exercise, it's really important that we're contracting our hamstrings and levering our hamstrings with both sides of our body evenly. We're always going to have one strong side and one weaker side. So don't just focus on going from point A to point B, focus on grabbing the contraction from the bottom with both legs evenly, squeezing at the top with both legs evenly, and stretching the way down with both legs evenly. I work to my weaker leg, that way I know my body's growing even on both sides. One other thing to think about while you're training is not necessarily just focusing on contracting a certain muscle, but also focus on not contracting a secondary muscle. For argument's sake, when we're doing this particular exercise, it's very, very easy, especially as I'm squeezing my glutes down and levering my knees up, to utilize my lower back. So with my mind, as much as I'm focusing on contracting my hamstrings, I'm focusing on deactivating my back. For my hips upwards, I'm holding with my hands, making sure the top half is nice and deactivated, and for my hips down, make sure my bottom half of my body is nice and tense and activated throughout the entire movement. Right, this is the last set. I'm going to push out as many reps as I possibly can. If we lose a little bit of form, that's no big deal, as long as I remain focused throughout the entire movement. Now we know with training that we understand that muscles grow by stretching and contracting, and so theoretically we always need to go from point A, which is the full stretch, to point B, which is full contraction, to get entire range of motion. Now unfortunately how the muscle works is as we fatigue throughout the movement, we can't always get the entire range of motion, especially towards those last few reps when we're fatiguing. So instead of focusing on utilizing a secondary muscle like lower back or glutes to try and get to that point B, just really focus on your hamstrings and focus on pulling the weight through your hamstrings as much as you possibly can. If that means you want to go halfway up and you can't get all the way up, that's no big deal. Just go back down again and do half reps. Always focus on putting as much possible tension as you can to your hamstrings and deactivating secondary muscles while you're doing it. Alright, for the second exercise, we're going to be doing a stiff-legged deadlift. Today we're going to use a hammer strength machine. This particular machine you won't find in most gyms. or you won't find all gyms. Some have it, some won't. And if you can't find it, it's okay. You can do exactly the same movement, but just utilize a straight bar. The reason I use this machine is because to fix the movement, I don't have to focus on stabilizing my body. All I have to do is focus on going up and going down. Like I said, if you don't have this machine, you can use a straight bar and do exactly the same movement with the straight bar. As we're doing a lot of bending at the hip, it's very, very easy for your lower back to take over. So we only need to go nice and light. There's no point in going heavy and utilizing half the movement with your lower back, because today we're not working lower back, we're working just hamstrings. So just pick whatever weight you need, what you guys need to pick, what you guys feel is good for you, and just judge it. Just try and keep the tension in your hamstring. If you find that your lower back's working too much throughout the movement, just drop the weight back a little bit. If you find that you can do 20, 25 reps very, very easily, it means it's a little bit too light, you need to increase the volume a little bit. Now this exercise is based on the eccentric more so than the contraction. All the tension of the muscle is on the way down. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up the weight on the way up. We're going to start at the top. Momentum with our minds, we're going to push our glutes backwards and let our hamstrings start stretching in the way down. We're going to be utilizing our hamstrings to lever the weight all the way to the bottom, or as far as you can until you can feel your back activating, and then contract back up to the top. It's almost like an elastic band. You stretch all the way down to the bottom, stretching the elastic band, and then when you hit that spot where you can feel your back almost starting to take over, or when you feel your hamstrings are fully stretched, that's when you contract back up to the top. Really the only reason we go back up is so that we can go back down again and get that stretch. As this exercise, it's all about the eccentric. Now with this exercise, what you can do when you feel your lower back starting to work a little bit from the bottom of the movement is you can contract your glutes from the bottom and use your glutes to drive the weight back up to the top. Also with this exercise, where you put the positioning of your feet, well, with every exercise, where you put the positioning of your feet is what part of the hamstring you're going to work. So if you just want to work your overall hamstring, keep your feet straight. If you're trying to work the inner part of your hamstring or your adductor a little bit, put your toes out slightly. Or if you want to work the outer part of your hamstring, put your toes in slightly. And think about what you're doing while you're doing it. With this exercise, we're going to do about 4 working sets, 4 to 5 working sets based on how you feel. If your back starts pumping up a little bit too much, then you might want to move on to the next exercise. We're also going to be aiming for about 12 to 15 reps. Same thing again, mentally in your mind, utilize hammies as much as you possibly can. If you feel your lower back's pumping up too much throughout the movement, just stop and go and do something else, or let your back have a rest. Now a good superset for this exercise, especially if your lower back's taking over, is a free weight body movement. All we're going to do is going to just use some part of the gym to hold on to. Remember, we're going to use this. And all we're going to do, you can put your chest up and you stick your glutes out. We're going to extend your left foot, starting with whatever foot you want to start with, back, straight back like this. And then you're going to turn the hip slightly. Now mentally in our mind, all we're going to do is we're going to imagine we're trying to squeeze my hamstring into my glute by simply doing this. Squeezing up, squeezing your hamstring, and then letting your hamstring stretch back down. Hyperextending your knee to get a nice deep stretch, and then exploding from the bottom with the contraction all the way to the top. If you lift your knee up a little bit higher, you get a squeeze at the lower part of your glute as well, which a lot of people lack also. We're just going to do about 15, 20 reps. Get a nice hard squeeze. Then you're going to do the other side. Same thing, chest up, glutes out, stretch your right leg back, turn the hip slightly, engage the lower part of your glute, squeeze your hamstring into your glute, hyperextend, stretch, squeeze your hamstring into your glute, hyperextend, stretch, 15 and 20 reps. Alright, this is the last set. Now with most exercises, I'll lose a little bit of form and just push out as many reps as I can to get that last extra little bit of burn. This exercise, I'm not going to do that. Purely because with this particular movement, like I said before, it's very, very easy for your lower back to take over. So all I'm going to do is do as many reps as I possibly can with the weight that I choose without my back working. As soon as my back starts working, I'm going to stop. The last thing you want is to have a massive pumped up back. It means the rest of your workout's going to be wasted. When you get to the bottom of the movement, hold that stretch a little bit at the bottom. When you get back to the top, don't hold it too long at the top. Purely because at the top of the movement, your hamstring relaxes. The whole idea is to get as much concentration as you possibly can without letting that release happen. But we always have to go back up the top so that we can get back down to the bottom. Get down to the bottom, hold the stretch, all the way back up to the top, straight back down. Don't stay at the top for very long. Now with the alternate exercise, if you guys don't have the machine I showed you before, all we're going to do, we're going to pick up a straight bar, we're going to start at the top of the movement, both hands over grip, just outside your quads. We're going to keep your chest up, you set your glutes out, and when in our mind, utilize our hamstrings to stretch on the way down. Now as we go down, I'm going to try and extend the bar slightly away from my body on a diagonal line downwards. That just puts more pressure onto my hamstring. You don't need to go super heavy. If you do, a lot of the time, we're just going to be utilizing lower back. Bar away from my body slightly. As you're pulling the bar away from your body, your glutes are going back at the same time.
The perfect getaway is about escaping it all and making it all about you. Legendary Red Hill on the morning temperature.
Always make sure you're breathing the out on the way up. Breathe in the way down. Now with this exercise, where you put the pressure on your feet is where the tension is going to be in your hamstring. If you want the tension to be at the bottom part of my hamstring towards my knee, press off the balls of your feet or your toes. If you want the pressure to be more towards my glute or my glute hammy tying area, push off your heels. Alright, for the third exercise, we're going to do 2 different lunges and superset them together. We're really going to focus on this particular exercise because it's very, very easy to stuff it up and it's very, very easy to lose tension. Alright, so we're going to use that right leg first. Now for the first lunge, what we're going to do is we're going to pick a line on the floor, a dead set straight line. What we're going to do with that right leg, as we're working our right leg first, is we're going to put our right toe on kind of a diagonal line like this, on the left hand side of the line. What we're going to do with our left leg is we're going to put our left leg backwards on the right hand side of the line, so on the opposite side of the line. Now all the tension in my mind is on my right hamstring and lower glute. That's what I'm thinking about when I'm doing this. So now when I'm doing a lunge, the weight of my body is what I'm pushing. All I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my top of my body upright or side lean forwards a little bit. My back leg's stretching, my right leg's contracting. It's all in my right leg. My back leg is only there to balance. Now with the crossover, we go all the way down. Now on the way down, you should be able to feel your the right side of your hamstring stretching on the top and the lower part of your glute. You feel the stretch on the way down? When you get to the bottom, use that same muscle, the same area you feel the stretch, contract all the way up. All the way down, all the way up. I'm going to do this about 15, 20 reps, making sure you keep constant tension in that area. With that exercise, be extremely careful. As your legs are crossed over, with any exercise, you need to be careful. This one you need to be extra careful your hips. If your hips are crossed over like this, it does put a bit of tension on them. Now the second exercise, also my right leg again. What we're going to do, right leg forward, left leg straight back. So keep your legs straight this time. The weight of my top part is going to be hunched over my body, hunched over my right leg like this. All the tension is on my right hamstring. There is nothing on the back of my leg. My back leg is just to balance the front leg when it's working. Imagine when you're doing this, it's like a stiff-legged deadlift. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of lunge forward. On the way down, you're not going to feel much. Now I'm going to pause at the bottom so you guys can see what I'm doing. We're going to lunge forward with that right leg. Now the tension isn't on the way down, the tension is on the way back up again. So what I want you to do is focus on keeping your top half over your front leg and engaging my hamstring, and we're trying to lock my knee out. Now watch this. As you can see, my top half isn't actually moving. My top half is staying stagnant, and my right leg is moving up and down. We're lunging down. From here, we're locking your knee backwards, and we're stretching through my hamstring. On the way down, there's no tension. On the way up, hamstring stretch. Down, no tension. On the way up, hamstring stretch. It's like a stiff-legged deadlift with one leg. Now, the good thing about these particular movements is that we can get our hamstrings working without having any tension. There is no downward pressure on my back, so it's very, very hard for your back to take over. But also still remain focused, ensure that you're focusing on contracting your hamstring as much as you can, stretching your hamstring as much as you can, but also focusing on deactivating secondary muscles like lower back. If you find it hard to engage the muscle, use manual activation. As your hands are free, it's as simple as placing your hand on the muscle you're trying to activate and squeezing the muscle. That just makes it easier for your mind to contract the muscle. These exercises, they aren't super intense. There's not a massive amount of weight behind them. So what you guys can do if you want to change it up a little bit, you can utilize them together as one exercise, or you can utilize them separately and do them as a superset with another exercise. Whatever you guys want to do, as long as you're keeping that squeeze in your hamstring, that's all that matters. Alright, this is the last set. Now with hamstrings, unlike some other muscle groups, I don't really like to train to a program. You guys utilize this program to get as much knowledge as you possibly can. But with hamstrings, like I said a million times, it's so easy to let a secondary muscle take over. So I want you guys to try and train by feel. Utilize the exercises I've given you for a bit of a guide. Get the contraction right, get the squeeze right, get the form right. Focus on the contraction, focus on not activating straining muscle. I want you guys to train for feel. If it doesn't feel right, move on, do it again. If your lower back's starting to take over, give that exercise a break, do something else and come back to the exercise. It's very easy to lose your balance. Just have something next to you that you can grab your balance onto if you need to, as your legs are crossed over. When you're trying to focus on one particular body and not the other, so it is very easy to lose balance. For the next exercise, what we're going to do is what's called a seated hamstring curl. Now with this particular exercise, what we're going to be doing is when you're making sure our knee is at this point right here. Every gym you go to, there'll be a hinge point where your knee has to be. If this machine is a little circle, that's where you have your knee. Also what we're going to do is we're going to change that tempo up. So throughout the entire movement, we're going to do a few stretches, a few full stretches on the way up, a few full contractions on the way down. We're going to do some half contractions. I'm going to talk you guys through it as I'm doing the movement. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure our knees are compressed nice and firmly down with this pad. We're going to make sure our back is flush against the seat. We're going to make sure our knees are in line with this point right here. A lot of people like to bend their toes back, I like to point their toes. Whatever you feel activates your hamstring the most, you guys do. Just try out both. For the first 10, we're going to use our hands to push our back into the chair, and we're going to use our hamstrings to curl down. So from the top of the movement, we initiate the contraction of our hamstring from the top. We squeeze down. I want you guys to hold the squeeze at the bottom. Hold the squeeze for about a good 2 or 3 seconds. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to use my hands to push my back into the chair so my glutes don't slip out on the way up. What we're going to do, use our hamstrings to lever the weight all the way to the top, ensuring that both my hamstrings are stretching at the same time. Full range of motion all the way back to the top, contract down again. We're going to go down for 1 second, a nice fast explosive contraction on the way down. I'm going to hold the squeeze for 2 or 3 seconds. I'm going to go on the eccentric up for about 3 or 4 seconds. I'm going to do that 10 times. And as a superset, we're going to go into the next one. Making sure that on the contraction, you're breathing out on the way down. Breathe in the way up. Alright, once you've done 10 or so reps for the superset, when you stay in the same position, what we're going to do is we're going to curl our hamstrings all the way down. We're going to lean forward. I'm going to hug the top part of the machine like this, so there's a gap between my back and the chair. And we're just going to do half reps. I'm going to go all the way to here, all the way down, squeeze, lever, squeeze, lever, squeeze, lever, squeeze. You might do this 20 times. You're really trying to get that nice deep burn in your hamstrings with that constant contraction. Alright, the last part of the movement, going to go all the way back up. Now, as the second part of the movement, as I put a lot of tension on the contraction, the third part of the movement we're going to do is we're going to put all the tension on the stretch. So just really careful, keep in mind your hamstrings when you're doing this movement. As the last thing you want to do is tear a hammy. We're in the same position, we're going to hug the machine, and instead of focusing on contraction, we're going to focus on the stretch. All the way to the top, get a nice deep stretch, contract down, squeeze. All the way up, nice deep stretch, contract, squeeze. Now with your hamstrings, not everyone go all the way to the top. Just go as far as you can to create that nice deep stretch. Push your limits a little bit. When you get to that stuck point, try and slowly leave into that stretch a little bit deeper. Mentally use your hammies and contract all the way to the bottom. All right, so in total for that one exercise, what we're doing is we'll do 10 reps, full range of motion from point A to point B. We're going to do 20 reps of the little half contractions. Then we'll do 10 more reps of the deep stretches all the way to the top. Judge this exercise by feel. We're going to try and get 3 or 4 sets out. Your lower back starts taking over, which it shouldn't, because there is no downward pressure on your back. Then stop and do something else and come back to it. With this exercise, if you lose a little bit of form throughout the movement, it's no big deal. I just want you guys to make sure that you keep your form as much as you possibly can on the exercise, which incorporate more lower back. As this one, there is no downward pressure, there is no leverage or bend of the hip, so the ability to get back pain is very minimal. Make sure if you find that you're not getting the contraction as good as you want to get it, just manually with your hands, squeeze your hamstrings, and that will help you get that contraction back. And then place your hands back if you feel your glutes slipping out on the way up, on the way down. Alright, for the last exercise, we're going to do a leg press for our hamstrings. We're going to use this particular machine here. Every gym has a leg press. Maybe not this sort of leg press, but they'll have a leg press. What you're going to do is keep your mind on your hamstrings. You're going to place your feet at the top part of the pad. You're going to keep your glutes squeezed right into the hole so your glutes don't round out. And mentally, we're not going to go too heavy, because if you go too heavy, your quads are naturally going to take over. We're going to use our hamstrings to lever the weight down, create a nice stretch to our hamstrings, and use our hamstrings to contract on the way up. We'll do that 15 and 20 reps, and we'll do that 5 sets. All right, let's go. We're going to start with lightweight. Keep the tension in your hamstrings, and each set we're going to progressively increase the load as long as my quads aren't taking over. Like I said before, it's really important to activate your hamstrings, but also just as important to deactivate lower back and quads. Keep your glutes in this hole. If I feel that my quads are starting to take over a little bit at a certain part of the movement, whether it be the top part on the way down or pushing from the hole, I can use my hands to push the weight off my quads and lever it mentally back onto my hamstrings. Just keep your hands on your knees. Also, it's good as a protective mechanism so you don't do a knee injury or a lower back injury. Naturally, throughout the movement, your glutes want to come off the bench. That's what naturally your body wants to do. Because as your hamstrings start fatiguing, especially after the entire workout we've done previous to this exercise, your body naturally wants to utilize a secondary muscle to take a little bit of the pressure. So when you can feel your hamstrings or your glutes, are starting to come off the bench, just keep them squeezed down and keep the tension on your hamstrings. It's all about controlling the muscle. All right, so the last set, I feel my quads starting to take over a little bit. I'll just keep my hands on my knees. When I feel that, I'm just gonna push at my knees a little bit, put that pressure of the weight back onto my hamstrings. Push out as many reps as I can, 15 or 20, and then we're done. Where you place your feet on the pad is where the stretch is gonna be on your hamstring, or the contraction is gonna be on your hamstring. If I put my toes out slightly, like this, the tension is gonna be on my adductor, or the inner part of my hammy. Put my feet a little bit closer, pinch is going to be more on the outside part of my hamstring. So this time I'm just going to keep my feet nice and straight about in the middle, just hit my hamstring overall throughout the entire movement. All right, that's it. One last tip with this exercise. When you get down to the bottom of the movement, as you contract on the way up, squeeze your hamstring on the way up, but also focus on pushing your glute back into the bench as well. So we're not just focusing on pushing up with the hamstring, We're also focusing on pulling our glute back into the bench so we can create that stretch on both parts of the hammy. So that's it, we've completed this 6-day training series. I understand there's a lot of information for you guys to absorb, so I've put together a plan for you guys you can view on your phone or print off and record as you train. If you've already registered to receive my free diet plan, then stay tuned as the program is on its way. If you guys are yet to register to receive this awesome free package, hit the link below, enter in your details, and you guys will receive my free diet and supplementation guide, as well as my 6-day training split.